Welcome to this explainer. If you spend enough time digging through the endless digital crates of music platforms today, you'll occasionally unearth an artifact that feels, well, less like a standard artist profile and a whole lot more like a cryptographic puzzle. Today, we're unpacking the deeply enigmatic digital footprint of a micro-artist known as brevenbell. We're going to strictly follow the data, the wild aesthetics, and this truly staggering creative output to map out a digital mystery that is as baffling as it is completely fascinating. Think of this as an investigative documentary into internet-native art and digital world-building.
We're kicking off our investigation with a very specific, almost impossibly small number, exactly 101. In an era where we're constantly bombarded with streams in the millions and billions, right? Seeing precisely 101 monthly Spotify listeners on a highly developed artist profile, it literally forces you to stop and pay attention. In today's streaming landscape, a number this low usually means you've stumbled on an abandoned profile, or maybe a beginner who's just testing the waters. But as you'll see in just a moment, the sheer scale of this artist's output completely contradicts this tiny, intimate audience size.
Okay, let's really dive into the math here, because the numbers start to tell a very strange story. You typically expect a pretty sparse track record for an artist with only 652 followers. But look at this. Their top tracks, specifically Veins and Revenge, are actually pulling well over 1,000 streams each, 1607 and 1258 to be exact. Another top track, So Near Dear, is sitting right up there too. So what does this all mean? When you have 101 monthly listeners, but individual tracks are reaching into the thousands of plays, it suggests this incredibly devoted micro-fan base that just has these songs on absolute repeat. Or maybe it's some sort of algorithmic anomaly. Either way, this isn't passive background listening, this is deep, repeated engagement from a very tight-knit group of people.
Now, here is where the mystery really shifts into high gear. The sheer, overwhelming volume of full-length albums dropped by this artist is wild. And incredibly, they're all marked for the single year of 2025. We're talking projects like 𝔤𝔢𝔢𝔫, Forgiveness for St. Brevin, Ritual, alongside multi-part projects like I Need Love, PT1 and PT2. Guys, dropping 9 or more full-length albums in a single year, that is a staggering feat of prolific creation. But it's not just the quantity that's mind-blowing, it's the intense, hyper-stylized presentation. Every single release is literally dripping with specialized characters, archaic symbols, and bizarre spacing. It creates this intimidating wall of art that practically demands you stare at it.
And this massive 2025 release explosion, it doesn't stop at albums. We also see a staggering flood of singles and EPs, building a remarkably dense catalog almost overnight. We're looking at things like the Boyer EP, the 𝔟𝔯𝔢𝔫 EP, and singles like Be Gentle and Summer Gone. Just reading through these, you get this palpable sense of an artist frantically documenting their emotional state in real time. They aren't waiting for traditional industry release cycles. They're just flooding their profile with content, building this expansive, sprawling discography that's almost daring you to try and consume it all.
What's absolutely fascinating here is the striking thematic duality present across all this output. brevenbell purposefully gives us emotional whiplash, juxtaposing heavy, dark religious motifs right against super vulnerable, gentle themes of love and healing. On the gothic and dark side, you've got albums named 𝔤𝔢𝔢𝔫 loaded with cross symbols, Ritual with pentagrams, and a single forcefully titled I Am Guilty. But then, on the exact opposite end of the spectrum, you find titles like Be Gentle, Love Song, and the incredibly raw 𝔟𝔯𝔢𝔢𝔫 RN. It's a fascinating contrast, packaging extreme guilt and darkness right next to desperate, fragile affection.
Looking closer at the darker side of this dichotomy, we find track titles that showcase an aesthetic steeped in what the artist themselves actually categorizes as gothic grief. Notice the deliberate formatting here. You have BEATIT, with the spaces stretching the letters out, immediately followed by a bracketed subgenre or emotional state, gothic grief. The artist is essentially creating their very own emotional vocabulary. By attaching it directly to the track titles, they're ensuring we know exactly what atmospheric space we're entering before we even hit play.
But then, completely flipping the script on the gentler side, we're hit with hyper-emotional album titles that literally bloom on the screen with floral and heart symbols. Take this 2025 album title, for example, I Am Lovey, decorated with little flowers and hearts. The stark contrast to gothic grief could not be more obvious. Here, the artist is leaning hard into Y2K-era text decorations. It feels exactly like an old internet form signature or an AOL away message, deeply nostalgic, but also painfully earnest. It visually communicates a sense of fragile, blooming affection that completely counters the heavy religious darkness we were just looking at.
So, what this extreme contrast highlights is how brevenbell relies heavily on stylized typography, using pentagrams, crosses, and special characters to build a highly curated visual identity directly within the streaming interface itself. Typography is literally being used as an instrument here. Think about it. A standard streaming profile is usually just basic black and white text, very clean, very corporate. By injecting archaic symbols and Y2K aesthetic markers, brevenbell forcefully hacks the platform's visual language. They turn the simple track list into a canvas, making the actual act of reading their discography a vital part of the artistic experience.
Just take a look at this specific 2025 album and single title. Blending numerical codes with a Star of David and the number 666 creates this instant aura of internet mystery. I mean, what does 03229 even signify? Is it a date? Is it a passcode? Slamming those numbers together with deeply loaded symbols is aggressively provocative and entirely ambiguous. It acts as a digital stop sign. It literally forces you to pause your scrolling and try to decode what on earth you are looking at.
And this intricate world building extends far beyond just releasing the music. brevenbell meticulously curates their own universe through bespoke playlists featuring incredibly complex Gothic text generation. We see somewhat standard titles like Bear and Beat It Care Package, but right alongside them are titles using Unicode text generators to create distinct fonts right inside the app. There's 𝔟𝔢𝔢𝔫 music written in heavy Gothic blackletter, and another reading, I Need Love by brevenbell, that mixes typewriter, Gothic, and cursive fonts all in one sentence. The artist isn't just dropping music into the void, they are meticulously organizing it into highly stylized chapters for their audience.
Now let's take a step back and look at the whole picture. Despite that incredibly intimate listener count, they maintain a fully realized, interconnected digital ecosystem that links their highly stylized Spotify profile directly to an Instagram account and a dedicated website, 𝔟𝔯𝔢𝔫𝔢. Think about that for a second. We started by noting there are only 101 monthly listeners. Yet, there's a dedicated website, there's an Instagram presence, there are multiple artist-curated playlists, there's a sprawling web of dozens of albums, singles, and EPs all released in 2025. It's this massive, towering digital architecture built for a crowd that could, honestly, comfortably fit inside a small local coffee shop.
Which leaves us with a truly fascinating digital mystery to ponder. What is the ultimate purpose behind creating such a sprawling, beautifully encrypted artistic world for such a quiet audience? Is this a public diary meant only for a select few? Is it a sprawling art project testing the absolute limits of digital platform aesthetics? Or is it simply an artist compelled to create, regardless of who is watching, leaving behind an incredibly complex labyrinth for anyone curious enough to wander in? It really challenges our everyday assumptions about success, reach, and why we make art on the internet today. What do you think?